Hey, Mike.
Hey Sanj, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Are you still at home?
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. I didn't make it any further than that.
I should throw on some headphones too.
I actually wrote out a few answers to your questions. All right. So you think we'll go an hour?
Yeah, we'll go about an hour.
Okay.
And we'll start at
Yep.
3:35. I'm just making a little note so I can pin it to the screen.
Ooh, I can translate in other languages now. What I'm saying. Let's see if I can. Should I do that? Should I turn on captions? See if that works.
I think we have
Oh, it does.
an echo.
Oh, maybe that's because of the turn off captions. Maybe was it the captions? Still an echo or no?
All right, I'm gonna hang up and join real quick.
Okay. Hey, Max. How you doing? I need to turn off something causing a problem.
No, it's not you. It's because I have the YouTube live on.
Okay.
I was wondering, like, what's going on here?
Can you see the captions that I turned on, or is that just me
That's
seeing it?
just you.
Okay. Okay, I'll turn it off. One won't help me at all. Ooh, I'm on YouTube. Drinking it's out of my bottle. I can see the captions on that screen.
Oh, that's me probably, or maybe it's YouTube.
Oh,
I
it
think
is.
YouTube actually records captions for live streaming now.
Okay, cool. So this is streaming, and will it also be available on YouTube as a after or no?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think you have to like delete it or something.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sharing the wrong window.
Oh, Tom Smith with the Deathly Hallows. Is that what that is?
Hi, Iris. Good to see you.
Iris.
Hello, sorry, my AirPod was not functioning well just now. So thank you so much. Good to see you, Sanjay and Michael. And
You feeling your hip though, right? I don't fucking push.
Yeah, we'll start in 5 minutes or so.
okay, sounds good.
I just want to give us one more minute to see if Dustin's joining us. All right, I would say let's go ahead and get started. Welcome all in attendance. This is put on through the Gate Club at Rosemead High, and I reached out to the recruiter centers at El Monte, south of Monte Arroyo, and Mountain View to see, if we can get more students interested. I'm Michael Porter. I was a first-generation college student, and I've been doing mentoring the last 5 years. And I saw this big, consistent problem in my mentees, and it's that there's this disconnect between working hard at school and sort of what it takes to get a competitive job. The big questions we hope to answer for those in attendance are is a tech job right for me, and how do you get a competitive job in tech? All right, with that, I'll introduce our panelists. Iris is currently a master's student at University of Michigan, but she was a former product manager at Uber China. Her efficiency, planning, and analytical skills are really amazing. I'm constantly impressed by her ability to process and navigate a complex priorities. In addition, her ability to land a PM job at a major company out of college is very impressive. I know a handful of folks with MBAs who struggled for a few years to get that first big PM position. And then we also have Sanj. He probably has the most impressive resume out of all of us. I didn't know about all his accomplishments when I asked him to be on this panel, but he's got his MBA from UCLA, He's been mentoring up and down California and now in Seattle. He co-founded a company to a huge valuation, and today he's the CEO of Bolt, and he's helping tech companies accelerate revenue. I haven't heard from Dustin, and I don't think he's available. But, I can take a stab at answering those questions from his perspective because I'm also a software developer. I'd like to start off with sort of the first three questions to understand, where our panelists have ended up. And can we start with you, Iris? And, we want to know, what was your work-life balance like as a PM? And then how do you feel about your respect in the field? And then we'll have follow-up after.
For sure. Thank you so much for Michael for the intro. I'm currently a master's student at UMich for my information major. And for my PM work, I would say the work-life balance highly depends on the job and the company that you're in. So based on my experience with Uber China, if you're collaborating with others and other time zones, that will be something you need to take into consideration. You need to get up early to get the meeting. But in general, I would say it's pretty work-life balanced in a way that you started your work around 10 to 11. That's how I started. And I probably end up at 6 to 5-ish every day. So this is my day-to-day life as a product manager. And in terms of respect, I would say I do not see any difference in the other the technical field. So I do feel that in the tech field, the product manager is kind of like a really hot topic now. So I hear a lot of, I would say, great voices from other people regarding the product management. So I think in this job, it is worth taking, and it's also a great learning opportunity along the way that you can either get the opportunity from the technical part and also your communication with other team members. So these are my experience as a PM.
Our quick follow-up is, how would you describe sort of a day in the life, as a PM? Like, what sort of activities did you do in the day?
Yeah, for sure. It varies a lot, but I would say there are 5 things that I do usually quite often. So it is identifying the customers. So what we do is we do have the user group focus research pretty often on a monthly basis with our customers, understanding what they do not like about the products, what they like about it, and if that aligns with what our prediction has been. And the second one will be the ideation and brainstorming. So based on our customer research and also focus group interviewing, what kind of summary can we get, a conclusion can we have? So there will be a lot of ideation and brainstorming among the teams, not only within the product team, but also with the data science, with engineering, with marketing, all the team collaborating together on coming up with a solution. And then it comes down to product manager writing the feature. So for example, when we are using Google Meet now, the feature of who can put in the chat, who can join the meeting, and who can just voicing up and to speak out, all of these are part of the product features that we take into considerations at a really detailed level. And so this is the third part. And also then we'll be moving towards to the developing phase. I do collaborate with the engineering team a lot to make my feature available and make it executable. And the last one will be the implementation, still using Google Meet as an example. After I have done all of the above steps, I have to make it available to the customer, to the users. So this will be the last step among of my works. So in general, I would say the PM job is consisting of these 5 parts.
All right, thank you. Same questions to you, Sandri. As a tech entrepreneur, what do you feel that your work-life balance is like? And how do you feel about your respect in the field?
Okay, so work-life balance. Let's put it this way. I would approach it differently now than I did when I first became an entrepreneur. I think when I was first starting out as an entrepreneur, I worked way too much, and I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't work quite as much as I did. It's still a lot of work, I think, any way you cut it. What I do now is I block off time for, my personal life, family and everything. And, and then I work, I work as, I do what I have to do in the interim. But, that forces me to take time away from work and do things that are priorities for me. And it also forces me to be more productive at work. So that's kind of how I tackle that. And I didn't quite understand the question about respect. I wrote an answer, but what do you mean by that?
Often prestige, respect, like
Okay.
how people will, respond when you say, this is my job. Because I think that, part of it's something that comes up a lot when, you're an American, right? Like,
I understand that, but personally, I don't really chase respect. I chase my own values and what I want to do. And ironically, I think you end up getting more respect anyway if you do that. I think thinking about and planning around the respect of others doesn't feel right to me. It feels less right more and more every year, or less and less. It feels less right every year to chase respect. Certainly these days, if you say you're a tech entrepreneur, I mean, there's some pizzazz to it, but it depends on who you're talking to. If you've been, luckily for me, I had another business that was generating income when I started. Otherwise, your family's not very excited. Like the people you live with and your parents and all that are not very excited when you're making no income for 3 years. So they don't seem to have they have a far less esteem for it than maybe other people do. It sounds like a very sexy thing, but it's a lot of hard work in the beginning, and sometimes you have to live on ramen for a while.
How would you describe a day in the life, as a tech entrepreneur?
It varies considerably. I mean, because as a tech entrepreneur, you are wearing a lot of hats. My partner and I split everything. We split every single thing until we started getting more people, and then we began to offload some of our work. But I'm a slightly different kind of entrepreneur now. I was running tech companies, but now I'm running more of a consultancy right now, and I may get back to starting another tech company. But this was I'm going to talk about being a AI software, COO and co-founder, which is what I was. That some days I was driving, and I was running from Uber to Uber in San Francisco, pitching investors, venture capitalists in for, let's say, an A round. Other days I might be, doing a whole battery of interviews to hire people in customer success or sales or marketing. Other days in the earlier days, I was on the phone hustling, trying to get business. Other days I was talking with our data science team, helping them understand what my vision was for the product and why I thought it was important, and how I thought people, how I would use it, because this was a product that I would have been a customer for. So those are just a few. I mean, that's what I like about being an entrepreneur, is the incredible variety of things you get to do. And although you didn't ask me this, I'll share. I was diagnosed when I was in my late 40s with severe ADD, and realized I've had it my whole life. And so you do find, I think, a lot of people who become entrepreneurs that had ADD. There's actually a guy here, friend of mine, Brett, who's in Seattle, that coaches ADD entrepreneurs. His business is Epsilon Coaching. Anyway, I think ADD people like me have superpowers that I think can work well as entrepreneurs. And there's things that maybe I wouldn't have been as good at, like being an analyst that has to look at numbers all day long, which would have bored me to tears. But so the variety, the day-to-day variety, is really appealing to me.
I'm gonna try. I didn't prepare anything, but I'll try and answer those same questions for a software engineer. So, what is work-life balance like? Ideally, you would be very efficient with your time, and you could fit everything into 6 hours if you're focused. That doesn't always happen, and if you're behind because your technical skills aren't the job, then you need to spend more time in there. For me, when I was just starting, I was learning on my own, right? My background is in molecular biology. I went to graduate school for biology, but I went into tech because I wanted to buy a home. I wanted more money than I think a biologist salary typically makes. So when I first started software development, I was working 50, 60 hours a week. And a lot of that was learning. If today when I do software development, I study for about an hour in the morning, latest technical things. I read docs. There's a whole wealth of information that I should know that would make me a better software developer, including system design. How do you feel about your respect in the field? I think Sanj had it on point when he's talking about you should not really be concerned about others' impact on your own field, but from the shallow perspective of talking to when your parents ask and you want your parents to be happy with your job, I would say none of them really cared. No one cared that I was a software developer. No one, in my family knew what a software developer was. I occasionally talk to people who still don't know what a software developer is. So, I mean, really, who cares? I mean, it was cool. I feel happy in my job. What's the day in the life of a software developer? Like I said, in the morning, I'll spend the first hour studying latest, technical docs, practicing system design, keeping up to date on technologies. And then after that, we'll have stand up for about 15 minutes. And this is when you talk about, how your progress is going, what's working well, what's blocking you. And then I'll code for, 2 to 4 hours. And that's when I get really the bulk of what I consider my work done. And then the rest of the day is really filled with meetings, with mentoring people on my team, with answering questions. As your skill set develops, you get a lot more questions asked, and a lot more of your time is taken up by meetings, and you have less time to code. So there's sort of that transition as seniority arises, where you're more answering questions and speeding other people up rather than coding all the time. Hey, Dustin. Dustin is our last panelist. I'll just do a quick intro for him. We actually started together at a coding boot camp. He went on to start his own freelance company after graduating, before working at Modus and Compass. And today, Dustin is a senior engineer working at a startup and on his own startup. I've known him for about 5 years now, and though we don't talk all the time, he is very self-motivated, and he has had really tremendous technical growth, and he's worked hard to develop his skill set. So I sort of answered the first series of questions for us, Dustin, but I think we'll move on into sort of the preparation phase, which is, let's focus on what each of the panelists did to prepare for where they are today. And so let's go back to Iris and ask, what do you need to do to prepare for becoming a product manager? And we'll have a follow-up after.
Sure. Before answering the question, I'm wondering, so what are the other participants? Which grade are they in? Feel free to just put in a chat so we kind of know which phase of the schooling you are at. So in terms of the preparation, I would say I do not know much about what I wanted to do when I was in high school or even earlier. So I started to learn about the tech field when I was an undergrad. So probably back to 6 to 7 years ago. And then at that time, I think in the undergrad, what I did to prepare for my PM is several things. So start from I would divide into the course learning, and the other is the industry learning. So for the course learning, I did participating in some of the jam and the hackathon, and to get hands-on experience on how it feels like in working as a product manager, because at the moment I only know the term as a product manager, but I do not really know what it feels like as a sophomore year in college. So getting hands-on experience in class and also within campus has been super helpful for me, and as a sophomore or even as a junior. So starting from junior year, I did step out of my campus, and I attended UC Berkeley when I was an undergrad. So I did collaborate with the entrepreneur and booth, so accelerators there in Bay Area. There were so many accelerators, and I just stepped out and asked if I can join your company and to just work with you for the semester. So these two, I think, have been the most helpful for me as a preparation for the PM role for my further endeavor into this tech field, even for as a fresh graduate and getting into the PM role, because it's not as easy as imagined. So all of these preparation and experience within the campus and outside it has been really helpful for me.
The follow-up question is, what do you think makes a good PM?
That's a question that I think I have also thought about by myself a lot. So what is a great PM? I would always divide it into also two fields. I think that there are hard skill and a soft skill. It's just easier to understand in a way. So for the hard skills, as I mentioned earlier in the first question, what we did in each of the day-to-day life, we did a lot of user research. We did communicating with engineering. So for the hard skill side, I would say get prepared for the prototyping on the UX design side when you're in school. Get hands-on and get idea of how it works, and also strategic planning and logical thinking. So when you're approaching the problem in school and in your class, try to structure your idea and to articulate on it. Make it as presentable as possible, no matter how small the question is. And also they can be technical. So be familiar with the coding if you can when you're in school. That all of these come from, I would say, the hard skill side. And for the soft skill side, there are a lot of communication. I would say definitely, because PM is kind of this role at the center of all of the other teams. You need to communicate with the marketing, finance, data science, engineering. All of them have different expertise. So tailor your language to the language they are able to understand. I would say this is really important, and as a PM, and also understanding your customer, just thinking about why they are complaining to your products or why they are appreciating your products. These are really great questions, and I think as a great PM to ask day to day. And the other ones for the soft skill set, I would say, is curiosity for all the other products in the market. Be focusing and also learning by doing from other products at the same time. So this in all will be my what I think is a good PM.
All right, Sanj, the same questions for you. What do you think you need to do to prepare for becoming a entrepreneur?
Before I answer that, I don't know if you wanted to address some of the questions with the chat.
Yeah, totally. Dustin, Tom Smith asked, what are some emotional and financial costs of being a software engineer?
I suppose, I guess just from my own experience, like an emotional cost for it is just a lot of like upfront stress. Like I think a lot of people talk about, in a lot of ways, like you're always wondering if you're living up to, the expectations of the people that you're working with and you're working around. There's always going to be somebody smarter in the room. And a lot of that comes with anxiety related to that. So I think that's probably one of the larger emotional costs that's associated with that. The financial costs, I would say, for me anyways, were relatively low because the path that I took was for a code boot camp. So there's the financial costs that were associated with that, loans and such. But some of my colleagues went to four-year colleges and there was a lot greater costs. There's benefits and drawbacks to both of those paths. But for me, it was that. I would say largely there weren't really costs, but there were benefits to it, In the beginning, the financial cost, I suppose, was just trying to live off very little and like trying to get that first job, trying to build up the very first part of your career is stressful emotionally, financially, a lot of times even, physically. Yeah, I'd say that was probably the best way I can think to describe that.
Thank you. Well, that's the last answer to the last question, I think, with the next section. But coming back to you, Sanj, what do you think you need to do to prepare for becoming a tech entrepreneur?
Well, there's a couple of ways you can become a tech. I mean, there's a few ways you can become a tech entrepreneur. You don't necessarily have to be technical. Most, I think, are, meaning that they have a technical background, either in, either there's, software engineer or bioengineer or, something technical. And often that's the case because, that's where the concept and the genesis and the origin of the idea comes from, and the person already has the skill sets to build something. But that certainly doesn't have to be the case, and it certainly wasn't the case with me. My partner was much more technical than me, and I was, my background before becoming a tech entrepreneur was being an entrepreneur in other kinds of businesses. So I knew how to run a business. I knew my specific area of expertise was sales and marketing, like creating revenue. And so I think you should come in with a very strong skill set in one functional area. I think that is a good place to start, and then understand what you lack, and then look for a partner or partners that that kind of round out what you're missing. So there's a guy named Steve Blank. He's very big in the startup world, and he says there's 4 basic kinds of people you need to make a successful startup. You don't necessarily need them all up front, but there's 4 areas which a startup operates in that you have to at least kind of, scrape by on those 4 until you can make enough money or raise enough money to hire those 4 out. So the first is what he calls a hacker, somebody that can build product quickly. The second is a visionary. That's kind of like the big idea, the big vision, where the company's going. The third is a hustler. That's someone who can, business model, sales, marketing, somebody to go out and find customers. And the fourth is a designer. And so I think we have, I want to say 3 or 4 of the 4 here on this call. So, so if you build a deep skill set in one of those 4 areas, I think it can really be a big asset. I'd also say just some general things like be more curious maybe than ambitious. Fall in love with a problem instead of falling in love with a particular technology. And I say those things because if you're curious and you're looking for problems to solve, that's a really good place to be. Because the best entrepreneurs, I think, are people that see problems that are causing people, difficulty, frustration, suffering, and they want to solve those problems. And they want to make people's lives better. And they obsess about how to solve those problems better and better every day. And they may use one kind of technology or different kind of technology, but the whole thing starts with the problem. or what we say. It starts with the why. Why are we doing this? Because we're trying to solve this problem.
Sorry, our follow-up might be a little redundant, but what do you think makes a good tech entrepreneur?
As opposed to any other kind of entrepreneur. I mean, really, it's no different than any other successful entrepreneur, other than the things I said earlier. Is what Steve Blank is pointing out, that technology usually requires at least these 4 skill areas to be very strong somewhere in the startup. It can even be a combination of people that contribute to that. But I think what I've seen in my my run is that I'll say another thing maybe that might be a little odd is, if you have your sights maybe set on being an entrepreneur, I think you have to work on, I would say, do what you can to work on your self-esteem, your self-image, your emotional quotient, EQ, your emotional maturity, because what happens is, if you are successful, you can get in above your head very, very quickly. I mean, we found ourselves with 18 million in funding and 65 employees before we could, it felt like before I could even snap my fingers, all that had happened. It certainly took time, but I'm saying it, in the grand scheme of things, it happened very quickly. And if you're not emotionally mature, it's going to be hard to handle a situation like that. And you see some entrepreneurs spin out, but I think the ones who are successful have either spun out and learned from it, or they had some level of emotional maturity by the time they got to some level of success. And also, it's much easier to get there if you know how to deal with people, which requires emotional maturity. If you have soft skills as well as hard skills, you can't just be. We're starting to see with Elon Musk, as smart as he is, and I certainly have a tremendous amount of respect for his technical abilities. We've seen that he would have maybe benefited from some more soft skills, some more understanding of people, and emotional maturity at times. But you see it sometimes, and that's, I think you get a lot farther with those softer skills, even though they may not be as celebrated as technical skills. They're very, very important.
All right, thanks, Sanj. Dustin, to you, what do you think you need to do to prepare for becoming a software engineer?
I think having like a willingness and like a desire to solve problems and learn. I'd say probably a willingness to learn and an eagerness to problem solve, and like excitement about those two things is probably one of the most important parts about it. I mean, if you inherently like solving problems and figuring things out and building stuff, I think that's probably one of the best things that you can do to prepare for it. Like, that's the first largest builder. Other than that, I think that there's like a ton of free tools out there, and probably super valuable. So if you can find anybody that knows more than you do, whether that's a great deal or a little bit, and have them pass that knowledge on to you or get answers to that, such as this forum here, I think it's like an excellent step. You can find out the best ways to do something, or things that may have taken you a long way to find on your own, and be able to get guidance in that way.
Now I'm starting to see that this question is definitely redundant, but is there anything additional you think makes a good software engineer?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, I guess some of the others have touched on, like, I don't really think that you can understate the importance of soft skills. Being able to communicate with all different lines of people across disciplines is super important. And being able to talk to a product manager and meet them in the middle, if they may not be technically inclined, to be able to describe your product or technical solution in a way that people that are non-technical can understand. Just being pleasant to work with, trying to have like a happy attitude and like a hunger to learn, I think is like very important too. And I guess another thing that I've found to be useful to me is just be like kind to people, like don't burn bridges, and try to lift people up and help everybody out. Like, I think that's like an incredibly important thing to do. For most of the people I've met are fantastic people. I've met people that I don't get along with, and I've met people that I'll probably be friends with for the rest of my life, and everywhere in between. But if you operate from a place of like mutual respect, excitement for problem solving, and just helping each other achieve whatever the goals you are, that will take you very far, in my opinion.
Our last question is sort of geared around exploration, and we're coming back to you, Iris. How should a high school student explore if being a product manager is right for them?
Yeah, first of all, I would say I don't think it's a binary thing. It's not like you are good fit for it or not. But I personally think all of the positions or all of the skill sets is like a spectrum. You can go if 0 is you're not good at it all, and 10 is you're super good at it. Everybody's in between, and you can find it yourself and draw a kind of a skill, like kind of a diagram of it. So I would personally say it is not a binary thing, but in terms of how to explore, I think it just goes back to the skill sets we have been talking about, and goes back to Singe and Dustin's points in all of the skill sets in the tech field. So try to work on the team and to see how you feel about it. The team can be in your school projects, and I noticed in the chat most of the students are in their senior or junior year in high school. I'm sure that you do have a lot of students organizations that you can be part of, and you do have a lot of classes you can be part of. So just work in the team, and no matter be a leader or no matter be a member of the team, understand how the team dynamic is functioning, and then devoting your skill sets into it and observing, okay, what is not functioning well, what is functioning well, and how can I improve on it? So all of these questions are valuable to just train on your problem solving skill sets as a product manager. And I think product problem solving is not only for PM, it can be applied to both entrepreneurship and software. So these are, I think, for the exploration part, just be on the scene and do it and think about it, think deeply about it.
If we had a follow-up for you, it would be, how do you suggest someone who's a high school student and wants to become a product manager, what do they do to get in the industry?
I would say, first of all, just being super open to all the fields. Do not limit yourself in any field. Product manager might sound great to you, and there are a lot of great fields out there. So just step out of your zone and listen to other stories. You're in high school, you're in college, no matter which stage you're in life, you do have tons of possibilities. So first of all, do not limit yourself in any specific field. And in terms of PMs specifically, I would say you can start from a really small steps. So such as when you're having a dinner with your friends or your families in the restaurant, and you are waiting in a long line, and try to think about, why is it? So asking the question about yourself, okay, why is there a long line? And the next step is, how can I solve it? What kind of solutions can I provide to it? And the other thing is to think about, who are the customers in this restaurant who are waiting for it, and who are the customers here having in the same context with me. All of these questions are so super valuable, and are the day-to-day questions I ask myself as PM. So as a high school student, you can start from a really small thing in your class, asking why it is not functioning and how can I improve? What are the users here in the setting? I would say these are my suggestions and to practice on it.
Thank you. Sanj, same question to you. How should a high school student explore if being a tech entrepreneur is right for them?
Well, I'd say first of all, start maybe thinking about those 4 areas I talked about: being a designer, being a tech, like programmer, sales and marketing, or I guess it's hard to prepare for being a visionary. I'd say, start anything, right? I don't care if it's a club, you can organize a charity project, get in the habit of taking some leadership. It's scary, and sometimes it feels weird and it feels difficult, but you start putting yourself out on the line. You put yourself in a position where there's a little bit of pressure on you and you have to pull something together, which is not unlike being an entrepreneur, except there's more pressure. Start a business. I started businesses at an early age. Doesn't matter. It could be mowing lawns. lemonade stand. I mean, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of businesses you can start. You could start an online business. You can maybe get some help from your parents or some friends, or join together with some friends and start it. It doesn't, if it blows up in your face, who cares? If it fails, who cares? I mean, you know, you'll get incredible experience trying to put together anything. You'll get a sense of, you know, which parts, you'll ask yourself during it, after it, you know, which parts did I like? Which parts did I not like? When did I feel excited when I was doing what kind of activities? Was it when I was working with people, or was it I was working with tasks? Was it when I was solving a problem, or was it when I was trying to motivate people to, you know, get excited about something? I mean, what part excited me? And then you'll start to get a sense for, you know, you can start to then sort of narrow down what kinds of things you like, and it could be entrepreneurship, could be something else. Again, mowing lawns, walking dogs, create a small app. You know, there's people in high school that start software companies, you know. So also, first of all, great job being on today's. I know this is, some of this is probably very boring, but good job for being on this call to listen and try to learn something, even though it's not in your normal, you know, day-to-day activities. But you guys have an advantage that I certainly didn't have when I was in high school, which is there's like an endless number of these kinds of things you can go to on, you know, you can check Eventbrite, Meetup, you know, there's all sorts of Zoom things going on, online things going on, where you can get exposure to entrepreneurs, read about entrepreneurs. There's no shortage of articles. You know, as you get out of high school, maybe into college, you can do an internship at a startup. You know, I've had you know, relatives in high school and college that I've dragged into my companies to do this or that, and friends' kids I've dragged into my startups to do this or that, and it's really helped all of them. So that's something you might consider as well.
I've got one follow-up to you, and that's let's say I was in somewhere between 11th grade and, you know, a freshman in college, and I wanted to work at a startup. How should you know, I reach out, and how should I go about it?
Well, there are internships that are posted, but there's the secret. Every startup needs help. Every startup's looking for help. So even if I was in your shoes and I would go work for free, I would go work for free to get experience with a startup at your age. And, you know, startups are not going to say no to free help, especially if you know, you're very young for them, but, you know, as long as you're, I don't know, past the age where you can legally work, I'm sure they'll find a way to put you to work if you can. Maybe a friend of a friend has maybe your friend's dad has a startup, or, you know, somebody, but there's ways you can get to people with startups and offer free help and get your foot in the door. And then once you have a little bit of experience, then you know, then usually you can get paid. And but the most important part is getting exposure, getting experience. That's priceless.
All right, thanks, Sanj. And Dustin, our last question is for you. How should a high school or college student explore if being a software developer is right for them?
Yeah, I think similar to some of the lines that we just heard, is just that there's a ton of information out there that is available to explore any of the passions that you have right now through the internet. There's meetup groups, like there's other nerds out there that you can go and build stuff. Like all the tools that you need to satisfy your curiosity are available to you, and a lot of them don't cost anything. So I think that it's just build stuff, break stuff, find a thing that bothers you that you want to make more efficient, build an app, you know, like, and eventually you can get to a point to maybe to where you can try to fulfill a need that you've seen, you know. Something that I did early on after I went to school is I started freelancing, and I took like super cheap jobs. And I remember the first thing I built was like this Chrome extension for this guy that spent like 8 hours a day copying and pasting fields into various forms for drop shipping. 8 hours. I didn't know this when I first started, but he wanted this thing that allowed to make copying and pasting. And I thought it was stupid, but like, I'm hungry. I just want to make something for somebody. But he said that it cut down on his work by like 4 or 5 hours a day when we were done with this. And it was the coolest feeling ever. It felt like magic to him. Like he was like, this is amazing. This helps my life so much. This is awesome. And that is such a cool feeling to be able to change like someone's life fundamentally. I mean, that's 25 hours a week that this man saved sitting in a chair because I made him some cheap Chrome extension that cost him like $100 or whatever, you know? So I would say just satisfy your curiosity in any way that you can, and surround yourself with people that like appreciate that, you know?
All
Yeah,
right, thanks,
hey, Michael,
Dustin.
can I make a follow-up point to
Absolutely.
Dustin's point about starting an app or a Chrome extension? It's such a good point. And Michael, have you heard about this guy who thought it would be funny to create some kind of program where you could rate how good looking people were as a gag in college? Do you remember that guy?
I
Do you
do.
remember? Who was that guy? What did he create?
That was Mark Zuckerberg, and he turned his Hot or Not app into Facebook.
And how much is it worth now?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Let's see.
Well, let's just take a
Facebook
dive
valuation.
before Amanda took a dive. Yeah. So little funny, jokey things. I mean, Twitter was almost an accident. It was a side project. Some of the biggest things we've seen today have been, you know, little side projects, little, hey, what if, like you said, Dustin, like I was curious about something, so I just put together this thing and it turned into something huge. I had a friend who was he didn't know what to do after business school, so he was screwing around in Hawaii and doing, I don't know, he was waiting tables, surfing, and he and his sister-in-law decided to start selling used purses, not even a tech industry, used purses out of their garage in Hawaii and their little apartment. That is a business. Last time I checked, was worth more than $500 million. They buy and sell high-end used purses, and they have an enormous facility in San Diego. And I mean, it's just crazy what you can start just by following something that's kind of half interesting to you.
Yeah.
All right, we're
Well,
now ready for the Q. Go ahead, please. Go
Oh.
ahead.
Okay, just also want to add up to Sanjay and also Justin. It occurred to me when I was undergrad, I was so desperate of gaining the experience where I was like, how can I start it on this? What kind of job can I do when I graduate? And there's I would say there's a website is for the volunteering based technical professional platform is quite helpful. It's called Catch a Fire. So you can devote your technical skill sets on that and helping the nonprofits on developing their websites, because a lot of nonprofits, they just do not have the money to hire the professionals as a lot of for-profit organizations. So feel free to check out the resource. If you do know something, just help them. And it's not only the impact that is really economic wise, it is also the social impact. I can see, like, one of the projects I worked on, it helped a lot of children getting back to school because they had been suffering from this depression issue. And because my website, they were able to gain the confidence getting back to school. So all of these have been left me with a lot of assets in my career and also my experience in the industry.
Thank you.
That's great.
We're entering sort of the Q&A. If there are any follow-up questions anyone has, if anyone has any questions about, any additional questions about what it takes to get into tech or what they should do, I do want to post 2 links. The first one is one I share for folks on cold emailing. So Sam mentioned, contacting people, and that's a great way to get your first job, whether it's paid or not. And the guide to it is, the trick to it is learning how to send a cold email. And the second one is levels.fyi, and it's where you can go and look up salaries for software developers, product managers, designers at different levels. And so, you can get an idea of what folks get paid. Our first question is, how did you end up choosing your career? Do you want to go first, Iris?
Sure. So what I end up choosing your career? That's a good question. I started as a business student when I was an undergrad. So this is what I thought. It was great when I was in high school. I thought business is such a great field to be in. Finance sounds so fancy. So all of these made me into the business school. But in sophomore year and the junior year, I started to do the self-reflections on myself. Do I really fit in the field? Do I think I will be comfortable working in the field? So all of these questions bringing me out of the campus to just intern, as Sam said, interning for free at startups, helping them, and just learning how they can build a products from scratch. So that is how I step out of campus, step out of my degree to just learn about the industry. So, and also that is how I led me into the PM field when I was freshly out of college, and I was able to land a job in PM. And now I'm in my graduate school for my technical degree. So this is how the journey kind of form up. I would say the career choice is always a continuous process. It's okay if you do not know what you want to do now, but just keep on asking yourself, what are the things that I feel naturally comfortable with? What are my superpowers? Do a analysis on yourself as a person, and then you will get the answer step by step.
Sanj, how did you end up choosing your career?
Well, let me say this. Let me say this, and you tell me if I'm crazy, Michael. I'd wager that what these folks will be doing in 10 years, Krissa, Andrew, Tom, everybody, what you guys are going to do in 10 years probably doesn't exist right now. Is that a fair statement, Michael? What do you think?
I mean, I can't predict the future. I couldn't tell you. We still have doctors. We still have nurses.
That's true. That is true. But what doctors are doing now didn't exist 10 years ago. A lot of stuff they're doing. I've been in a robotic surgery before, which didn't exist, 20 years ago. So what I would say is things are changing more with more velocity and more significantly than any time in history. So I think like thinking about your career in a grand sense is a little, I guess you don't have to worry about thinking about what you're going to do for the next 20 years, because even if you do pick a path, the path is going to have a lot of twists and turns. It just will, get the way things are going. So I think what's more helpful is to kind of get a general sense of the general direction, like working with people, working with, code, working, these kinds of decisions are probably more helpful to you, which should take some pressure off of you. If you just pick a general direction and of course start to specialize, just know that you're going to have to get in the habit of learning constantly and learning on your own. And nobody's going to be standing on your head telling you they're going to give you a test on this stuff. I learned almost all the digital marketing. I learned it all on my own. Digital marketing didn't even exist when I was in college. So artificial intelligence wasn't even a thing when I was in high school. And yet I've been involved heavily in all those things. So so it's hard to say. I mean, I couldn't have possibly thought of this in high school, my career path. So my career path is probably like yours in that, I was very interested in sales. I got into that because you can make a lot of money. You don't have to be super smart, which I wasn't. And then it just sort of led to, people who are very entrepreneurial go into sales. I saw some, what I was doing sales, and I happened to find a business opportunity to get started in my own business. And then then things just kind of evolved. So I would say, once you're doing something you like, just let yourself evolve and think of it as something that will be ongoing.
Thank you. The last one for you again, Dustin. How did you end up choosing your career?
I think I wanted to be an engineer of some kind from a young age, but there was a lot of pressure for me to go to a traditional school, and that just did not work for me. I had a hard time paying attention and subscribing to things that I wasn't like super interested in. So I guess the long story short is I did a bunch of work for a long time that I ultimately did not enjoy, and decided to make the jump into this career path. I think it's fantastic that everyone that's here is thinking about this stuff at a young age, and I wish that I had access to the same set of tools at that point. I think it's awesome, and I think that sort of curiosity and willingness to go out and like pursue that stuff on your own like speaks volumes of what's possible, what you could potentially do in the next 10 or 20 years. And I think it's also fine to not know exactly what you want to do right now. like being curious and just being willing to pursue your interests, I think to me is like the most important thing. Ultimately you want to be happy with what you're going to do. Making great money is great, but you're here and you're pursuing one of these three things, you're probably going to be all right in that department. So I'd say try to find something that just interests you and then just feed that.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you all for your time. We're at 4:26, and Stanley wanted to post a closing attendance form. So if there aren't any other questions, I'd like to, thank our panelists, and I appreciate, your time and that you were able to participate.
Cheers.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
I'll just keep this open so folks have a chance to click on the link. If you all have any other questions, Catherine Lou has my email, or your Career Center does. Thank you.
Dang it, dang it, dang it.